Welcome back to Borderlines Part 2, right? As you know, we have two parts. The only show that takes you beyond borders. I bet you enjoyed that last interview. We will be having Ezra back because all the lines were going. We couldn't fit in everybody, but we will book him again, and this time it will be for a much longer session. If it's possible that he'll be happy to wait to stay with us for an hour and a half, so that you guys can get more of your questions in. We will ask him and we will do that. But that was most interesting and enlightening. I don't know about you, but for me, it was most interesting and enlightening. Right. We're back in Africa right now. We're going to East Africa. We're going to Kenya, as I warned you earlier. In Kenya, the youth, the equivalent of our NSARS, has been going on for a few days. Guess what sparked it off? Economy, increased taxes. Can you believe that? Taxes is what sparked it off. In fact, it started off online and gained momentum. As of today, it is said that at least one of the young protesters has been killed by police. So with me today to discuss this, because as I keep telling you, we go everywhere. On Borderlines, we will step into everywhere. If you don't see us having a guest, it's because we haven't been able to get the right guest. But with Kenya, we've got the right guest. We have two guests, actually. I have Husna Hassan, who is the Deputy Chief of Party CSM-STAND Sudan Pact. And she's a development professional, governance expert with multi-sectoral focus on poll parties, devolution, local governance, citizen pacts, and public sector reform. The other guest we have, both Kenyans, is Kivayiru Kidavi, who is a theatre and performing arts director, writer and director, an advocate, campaign against recruitment of child soldiers, and a co-founder of Pilots Drama Group. Welcome to both of you, Husna and Harry. Welcome. Husna, am I pronouncing your name right? I can't hear them. Can we unmute? Both of you might need to unmute, I guess.
Thank you so much. It's Husna.
Husna, right. Thank you for correction.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Right. And Harry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. So, Husna, if I may just come to you, what has been going on in Kenya? Tell us what is going on and what sparked it off. I can't hear you again. I can't hear. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
A lot has been going on in Kenya, and we've been having more or less of a new government, which came in 2 years ago. And the government came in with a promise to take the interest of the citizens first, more or less of it's a government for the hustlers, for the normal citizens. And once it came on that platform, everyone was excited because of the change, and they expected that the government is going to apply its bottom-up approach, which is going to safeguard the interests of the Kenyans. But unfortunately, once it comes to the generating of the reviews, the taxations have gone on a higher end. And the first year it was a bit high, we were a bit quiet, we were like maybe the government needs to settle in. But now for this second year, you find that things are worsening up. And worsening up in terms of the taxation has gone much higher, the inflation is higher. And you look at it in terms of it's affecting even the basic things like bread, it's affecting transport, it's affecting the petrol costs. So the cost of living is anticipated to be much higher. And on the other end, we're thinking of dealing with a lot of high debt, international debt, which is also going to be a burden to the citizens. So you find that the Gen Zs, at least this time, have come out to amplify their voices because they are feeling not being engaged in the process of budget making, because our Constitution 2010 had said that the budget will start and finish with the citizen. That means the citizens have to be involved in conversations of agreeing the revenues to be charged, the financial bill, so that once it's accepted, approved, that's when it's going to be implemented. So it's a very tough time, and it's a sad note that one of the protesters was shot yesterday and he passed away today. So it's a sad time for the nation. Over to you.
It certainly is. Harry, if I may come to you, can you hear me, Harry?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Clearly.
All right. So I'm presuming you fall. Are you a Gen Z or are you a millennial?
For the startup, I'm a millennial.
Okay, you're a millennial. Right. So you've been have you been out protesting?
Yeah, Tuesday I was in town. We were actually going there to check how the response will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yes, the whole world actually saw what really happened and what really transpired. Now, I think in our slogan, we usually say in Swahili, but I'll translate it for you in English. We are actually saying the donkey is exhausted.
They're saying what? The donkey is exhausted.
So in Swahili, we usually say punda amechoka. So everyone is now up. Now the Gen Z and the millennials, I think they have now teamed up. And what we're actually witnessing right now is actually dealing with a group demonstrating whereby you actually do not know the real leaders.
Okay, so what you're saying is there are no leaders. It's just grown organically, and all the young people are out on the streets.
I think for the better part of it, I'll clearly say TikTok has really been the base at which people have really been putting the message out there. The message went out, it reached far the masses, the youths in every county in the country got the message.
Yeah.
Now, when they came to planning, they are just planned. They planned everything, then they post the information. Now,
Okay.
The turnout was huge yesterday.
Okay.
And it was, yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting that because most people don't think young people care about taxes. So it's most interesting that this protest led by by young people is actually about taxes. I remember seeing one of the protesters talking about the taxing of wheelchairs, etc. Why is the tax issue so important to young people in Kenya?
Now, I think the transition of power from the previous regime to the current regime, I think the main factors were there was an initiative by the former First Lady Linda Mama initiative, which was actually a campaign towards through zero tolerance to maternal death. Then there was also an initiative for the girls, for keeping the girls in school because of their nature of the monthly. It was actually a sanitary drive initiative, but it was fully funded by the government. And then there also the issue of employment. Now, these were among the three basic factors that I think when it comes to Kenya, employment is on the high among the youth. Now, when this government came in place, there was a lot of promises in their manifesto. Now, the implementation, I think that is where things started getting south, because whatever was being implemented was being contrary to what we were seeing. A lot of wastage, a lot of government spending, and actually the government is spending a lot on non-essential needs. So you can imagine, like right now, the Linda Mama initiative, which was actually spearheaded by the former First Lady, is scrapped off. The sanitary drive initiative for the government to buy to keep the girls in school, it is no longer there. The free primary education is no longer there. The free secondary school education is no longer there. They also have actually scrapped off the higher education loans board, which are selling the loans that actually keep these university students back in the colleges and universities. It has been scrapped off. So you can imagine a child coming from a middle and a poor background. How is he able to access education? And these are the these are actually the same generation that the same government was using as a campaign tool in order to ascend to power. Now I think they misunderstood the concept out there, and based on the previous demonstrations whereby it has always been chaotic destruction of property, this one came, I think it caught the government by surprise.
Okay.
So people were demonstrating just from the street, all demonstrating in peace.
Indeed.
Bearing the king and everything that was being thrown them by the police.
Okay, thank you. Husna, if I may come to you. When President Ruto came in, Husna, can you hear me? Husna?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So when President Ruto came in, he made quite a lot of promises and he was voted in by Kenyans. What changed? I mean, I remember seeing a trending video of him where he talked about the emancipation, I'm paraphrasing now, the emancipation of Africa, from the West, etc. I remember seeing young Kenyans being happy to have him in, despite the fact that he was part of the same political elites. So what are those promises that he made that, if you like, that tricked the people into voting for him, which he has now abandoned?
He came on a platform to emancipate the citizens, and more or less he was looking at the grassroots people, because for him he'll be like, I'll bring for you the resources, I'll bring for you the fertilizers, I'll make sure the economy will grow, I'll make sure your life will be okay, and I'll make sure that you will more or less lead the government with me when you vote me in. And you find that really mobilized everyone, including the KKs, for them it's like, we'll give you money for business, everything will be okay. The women who are selling vegetables in the market, all of them were involved in the campaign. And that's why for them it was like, this is a guy for us. So once he came in, everything literally changed. And it changed in terms of the budget. It changed in terms of the taxations. It changed in terms of doing business, As much as you're given the incentives to do business, indirectly the money comes in with the right hand and goes out with the left hand. That's why you find like that even the money, it's too little, because if you're given like less than $50, how can that grow a business? So you find that so many of the promises were down, and anticipating that agricultural products, the incentives will make sure that there is a lot of change in the country. But you find that didn't happen. So you find that instead of having the bottoms up approach to support and grow the nation, it's the poor who are becoming much poorer. They're suffering. You're finding now that even before then, the generation millennium as well as Gen Zs were not involved in the process. But now, the way things are going, it has given us a new uprising whereby you find that the youth have learned that other countries have gone through the same process. You find Egypt went through the Arab Springs uprising. You find Sudan started the same way because of a high cost of living, because of protesting, demonstrating for bread alone. That has seen Sudan to be burning till now. So for the youth in Kenya, you find that it's also learning how can they utilize the social media for them to be heard. for at least for the government to be sensitive and be responsive to the voices of the citizens. So for me, a lot has changed, and it's a good opportunity for the youth to be involved now in this process. And why are we saying it's important for the youth, who are majority, to be involved now? It's a voice to reckon with. It's a constituency that can no longer be ignored. So for us, it's a good timing now that we're in our second budget reading, that things have to be addressed and the citizens have to be heard, because as we said, because of devolution, the power is vested in the citizens. And if you look at the dividends of our democracy as he had promised us, that's why it's important for us to keep up with the conversation, and that to set that citizens have to be heard in terms of budget making, finance bills discussions.
Okay.
Over to you.
All right, thank you. Harry, if I may come to you. Harry?
I can hear you.
Yes. So given what Husna has just said, of course, it is about the economy, and like you rightly said, all the other initiatives that's been scrapped, that's been taken away from poor people, from students, so if you like, from the vulnerable masses of the society. What would you say to those people who say to you, well, wait, there's a global crisis going on, right? Pretty much every other economy in the world is having to look at, because the first thing governments do when they're broke is to raise taxes, because that's the one thing that's within their powers. What would you say to that? So to those who say, look, President Ruto is only doing what he has to do, right? He's only doing what the rest of the other his peers across the world would do, by raising taxes in order to make, to create, to find revenue and keep the economy stable, if you like. What would you say to those people?
Now, I will say this, I'm not an economist, but also have the basic knowledge of running a small business. Now, when the government cannot claim it does not have money, because when this government came in place, they say the previous regime had left the coffers dry, completely dry. Now you can guess the amount of money they used during the inauguration ceremony. It's on the record, 200 million. Okay, we said, okay, fine. The previous government had no money in the coffers, they left you the empty coffers. Okay, we may understand, you got this money. Now, things started changing when this government in place, we have leaders who are running the government. And I'll give you an example. The basic salary of an MP in Kenya is around 800,000 shillings monthly.
Right.
But this member of parliament is going on a fundraising every single weekend, donating 5 million shillings for fundraising in a church. Those are the questions we are asking ourselves. Kenya itself alone, it can sustain itself. The fact that a lot of Kenyans pay taxes, and most of this money, we are complaining because most of this money is being swindled away through corruption, embezzlement, with every leader in office, starting from the lower level, from the county level.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually having a particular county, a sitting governor in a marginalized county, is already erecting I can't even, I don't describe it. It's actually a mansion in a story building in the capital of the city. Right. Whereas the same people that he was elected by, the same people that actually suffering at the county level, have children are going to school and all sorts of problems. That is the problem you have. We have a lot of wastage in the government. Right. The moment we curtail this wastage and stealing of government funds, Kenya is able to sustain this economy. The more we don't have a problem with borrowing. The problem comes, the money we are borrowing is also being stolen. That is the problem. Right. Now, when you come to us, I'm a young man, I am jobless, I don't have a work to do. Then you tell me, this government was ours, has decided that since you have schooled to a certain level of education, you're actually a master's or a degree holder, you have to go and do building and construction as a laborer for the upcoming government affordable housing project. Is that even possible? The same government that was saying it's going to empower you to become a powerful and a better person. It's the same government that it comes publicly and tells the youth that this government does not have jobs, that we can give the jobs to work as masons and laborers in this upcoming government free housing development. I think that is why it started eating it, because day after day after day, officials in government are always on trips outside the country. And I'm very sure I've seen whatever the memes you've been posting about our sitting head of state.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned the travel out of the country, and that they're always looking out. The poverty index in Kenya contrasts with the country's economic growth or development, if you like. In 2021, Kenya ranked amongst the 10 highest GDPs in Africa at almost 116 billion USD. Moreover, its national income per capita has increased to $2,117 US over the last 10 years, a growth of above 100%. So generally, while poverty decreased in the country during the same period, Kenyans still seem to be far from reaching the United Nations Development SDG to eliminate extreme poverty. What is it that the government is not doing? And Husna, I'd like to see you, because I'd like you to also chip in on this when I come to you. What is it that the government is not doing that they should be doing right now?
Now, I think the problem is one. Kenya is not broke. Kenya has money. Kenya has a lot of money. And whatever the index that were being given by the World Bank and all the International Economic Survey, it is true. The problem with Kenya is this money is being controlled by few elite individuals. What do I mean by that? I don't know if you are aware, the economy of Kenya is being run by 8 different individuals, 8 powerful individuals. These are the same guys who are running the Kenyan economy. These are the people short. These are the people called short economically and politically, and also socially. We don't have a problem with that. We only have a problem whereby even the little money the youth are actually, now I think after COVID, that's when the youth decided to venture out online to make money. We also have a problem whereby this youth is paying taxes, being charged VAT, all sorts of things in buying and everything, or is buying, that's the youth who is not employed. There's also another youth who is employed, is actually paying pay as you earn. It's also being deducted all sorts of taxes. When he goes to the market, he also has to pay VAT. The same youth happens to be a content creator. The same government is coming for the little cash that man or woman is making online. How do you expect us to survive? Everything is now on the rise. Fuel is on the higher side. Foodstuffs are on the higher side. Basic commodities for kids are on the higher side. Like even right now, even giving birth to Kenya is an expensive affair. We call it 1,000 ways to die, because someone will tell you, do you want to give birth? Yes, go. First of all, go and check the price of Pampers in our local supermarket before you come back here and make that decision. Those are actually the questions that we do not, I think they should have consulted us first. I doubt if they did consult. Maybe Husna can tell me, because me, I've never, ever sat in a place where my youth had been consulted. We only wake up in the morning, we're being told, yes, Parliament has come up with this particular approval, and you'll see all sorts of shenanigans in Parliament, meandering and noise. Then all out of the blue, just because the bill was passed. Like right now, we are going on the bill passed the second reading. We are now going for the committee stage. And this committee stage is where all sorts of shenanigans happen. Even those ones who oppose the bill are going to vote yes for that.
Right. Thank you. Husna, you heard what Harry said, and I'm going to ask you, do you agree that the Kenyan economy is owned by 8 powerful people? And of course, here's the thing. Harry makes a good point. He said, look, maybe Husna's aware, but I've never been consulted. However, in a democracy, the MP represents the districts and they are supposed to be the ones that carry forward and present the will, the wants of their constituents. I'd like your comment on that, please. Husna, can you hear me?
Thank you so much, Harry, for that observation. Because I've been working with international Republican institutes in Kenya, and we've been supporting the governments, our leaders, to be able to engage the citizens in the budget process, to be able to engage the citizens to understand what finance bill means and how can they participate in it. And you find that by then we can say maybe the youth had not arisen much to know why it was critical for them to participate in that process. And you find half the time it's either women or the men who understand why is the budget discussion very critical. But I say at least it's an awakening call that the youth now have come out in a creative way to engage in these budget discussions, because governance involves all of us. Democracy, political participation is our roles and responsibilities. That's why you find from the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it had given us a wide range on why as citizens we have to participate in the process. And you find that things are changing gradually, because from the constitution making process, we find that it was a bit hot for the people who understand why is the process clear, getting the CSOs to participate in that process. And now you find that now that our activism have gone to the next level, because you find even our party primaries have become very hotly contested. We can say thanks God to the Constitution 2010, as well as the opportunities which have been given to the ordinary citizen to know how they can participate. And this has taken us to the level that we have our members of parliament, our women representatives, our Senate to be able to represent us as citizens, because the powers were transferred to them to represent us. But with the transfer of power, you find that one of the weakness we see, that's why you find this 204 who voted for the bill to continue to the third reading. One thing I said, most of them might not understand the budget process. Because for one, as members of parliament, they're the ones who are meant to be engaging their constituents to hear what concerns do they have about the finance bill, so that they can be able to represent it in parliament. And my own MP, I come from Kibra constituency, he never engaged us, you know. He never did that. So you find that it's like now, where we need it most, because Kibra is one of the slums the biggest slums in sub-Saharan Africa. And you find the poverty level is it's bad, you know, and people are living below the $1 per day. So that process, you find that with the members of parliament, for them, they had to listen. What are the concerns about the finance bill? What are the women selling vegetables on the roadside need? How comes they are being charged more? Is it making sense for them to be charged more? And as members of parliament, they should have gone back to say, hey, this is a bit higher on our constituents, and have proposals, because there are several proposals that they can do. One of it I'm looking at in terms of service delivery. If we are able to get effective, timely service delivery, then as citizens, I don't think we'll be complaining that much. The roads are in dire state, wanting states, which needs a lot of remaking, redevelopment. You find that our schools, as Harry said, if you're going to have the junior secondary schools teachers who are being hired on almost $100 a month, and they're graduates, it doesn't make sense at all. So as our members of parliament, if they were keen, that oversight to ensure that we get service delivery would have been key to make that change for us. Then also you look at some of the levies that they're putting up on Kenyans, like housing levy, you find that I won't be guaranteed as a citizen to get that house. why don't they work with the civil servants, because those are the ones we can say it's very targeted. If you look at the National Housing Insurance Funds, we pay for it, but we don't get those services. So the question always comes, why should you pay for a service that you're not getting? And on top of that, it's like now they always put their priorities first as our leaders, elected leaders, which is against the Constitution, because it was they are meant to be servant leaders. And servant leadership was coming in importantly because the citizens were meant to be better off. The women selling the vegetables on the roads, the youth who are the main campaigners because of their content creations using the social media, now they're all forgotten. But if the government is going to be serious to look at how best can we be able to cut the unnecessary costs, we have some of these international trips. So why are they taking such expensive international trips? Yet they know even this current proposal, we have a budget deficit. Why are they maintaining very high lifestyles? Because he had promised us as Ruto when he was coming in, he'll be like, Kenya will be first. That's why we are talking about Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
What happened to that Kenya first ideology? Where did it go? Instead, now they made sure the entourage security escort cars are very high. This was a guy who will come on the street and he will be hitting the youth on the hands. It's like, I'm
Fist
with
bump.
you.
Fist bump, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Now he's no longer there. So you find that a lot of things have really changed. And I blame it on our members of parliament because they went there with specific roles to ensure this oversight. They went there with the specific roles to ensure they're going to represent the constituencies. Yeah. So these voices, why are our voices being muffled, And instead of listening to what we are saying, and at least the Gen Zs have come up to bring up the voice, amplify the voice, now they're just saying, these are content creators, just rubbishing it off. And for me, I'm worried because I was in Sudan when the...
If you could wrap up,
uprising for bread started, and it started on very small way, whereby they had fewer people, but it grew up up to the time the country was burning down. So for me, it's an opportunity for our members of parliament to be very careful, because they said, they're going to remove the taxation on bread. If they're going to remove the taxation on bread, what happens to the levy on fuel, If they're going to put that levy on fuel, it means the cost of life will still be higher. Why can't they say, even as people who are thinking about their constituents, to go for pay cut? There's a time President Ruto had promised he will have very minimum, budget and all that. But now you see we have the
Okay, so let me interrupt you at that point, because it's an important it's a good segue to my next question, and then I'll come to you, Harry. So when you look, given all that you've said, though, we've had, or at least the Kenyan Parliament has voted for the controversial bill, right? For the finance bill, right? 204 MPs voted yes, while 115 MPs voted no. So from here, it's going to move to the third reading, and then it's going to be, go to President Ruto for assent. But Kenyans aren't pleased with the amendments made. So what will happen? Give me 1 second. Let me just remind my listeners and my viewers, we are still streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3. You will be able to put your questions through. I know most of you are thinking, this sounds all too familiar to us. We're in Nigeria, right? 0201 277 0993, 277 1993, 277 2993, 277 3993. Send your questions now to 0809 597 5805, direct to our WhatsApp. So coming back to you, Husna, if you can answer that briefly, and then I will give the same question to Harry. So what the amendments are clearly may not happen, right? Because if it goes to the third reading, the way it's looking like it'll be passed at the third reading, right? So What then is going to happen if that amendment is not made?
Right. At least we had the president saying that all he was asking the members of parliament to consider to pass the bill so that they can have money for the roads constructions as well as money for the teachers. So for me, that shows at least a way that there've been intercessions whereby they are thinking about some of these proposals. And we expect that because from the second reading, the bill will be taken back to the budget committee to consider some of these proposals. Unfortunately, we can't tell what the proposals they're going to consider, even though they have just announced to us that the taxation on the bread will be removed. So we are waiting to see how much. And that is the point. That's why you find that we are lobbying our members of parliament for them to consider some of these recommendations to review the budget so that it's gonna help and not ban the country. And if they don't listen, the chances are the demonstrations can continue because, as you know, with the powers of Constitution 2010, we've been given the mandate, we've been empowered as citizens to protest peacefully. And we've seen this happening before. We've been having the Shisha Mondays, whereby every Monday the opposition used to lead demonstrations once we are clamoring for change of the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission. So with that history, knowing what we've been through and the empowerment, I'm expecting more protests to continue.
Okay. Harry, I'm going to come to you at this point. What are your thoughts on what you've just heard? What are your thoughts on the fact that the money, they're going to be creating more money for teachers? The tax on bread is going to be removed, possibly. As the tax on wheelchair being removed, what more would it take, or do the youth want, in order to get off the streets and stop protesting? Over to you, Harry.
I think we have forgotten something. On X app, the slogan has been Reject Finance Bill 2024. After they passed that article yesterday, the slogan changed. Reject, do not amend. We are Kenyans. I'm sorry to say this.
Don't be sorry. Say what you've got to say.
We Kenyans have our own fair share of scandals.
Okay.
You Nigerians have your own share of scandals.
Absolutely.
We know we are Kenyans. We have been born in this country, and we know this kind of talk when it comes to talking. I will just ask Nina, have you ever seen in the history of Kenya a bill being amended when it comes to money? No. That bill is not going to be amended. It is going to go to the committee stage the way it is. The only thing they are going to do, they're only going to put a lot of vocabularies and a lot of niceties on the cover pages and the prefaces of that bill. The real deal is in that bill. People need to read. The moment this Gen Z and the millennials sat down on TikTok, people decided to share contentious issue piece by piece, page by page, outright for the public to read. That is when people became enlightened, because we were just being told, oh, finance bill this and that, finance bill this and that. All along, it has always been about fuel, bread. Fuel, bread. Now, it came to a point whereby a sitting government will have to tax sanitary pads.
So is the tax on sanitary pads going to be removed?
It was there. They only talked about it. They only talked about it. It is there and it will be there. This tax, they are
no, do you mean that it is still there? They haven't removed it?
It does not matter if it's going to be discussed or not discussed. The fact remains that the report from the committee stage will not be made public. And if it will be made public, be very sure the report that is actually in the public domain will be very different from the one that is in parliament. We are actually not based in this kind of situations in this country. We know what they have been doing. I think the problem usually comes, and I'll take you to a bit of statistics. The people who passed the bill were 204. the people who actually opposed the bill were 115. Now, in Kenya, we have less than 220 constituents. In these 220 constituents, we have 220 elected members of parliament. We have 220 elected women. We also have women representatives in this number.
Mm-hmm.
We have governors who are elected in each and every county. We have 47 counties. We have 47 senators. Now, the funny thing is that the senators are not allowed to partake in decision making of the parliament. Back to history and government, basic government structures, even in our own syllabus and curriculum when you are learning the 8-purpose system, it is very clear. The Senate is the upper house. The parliament is the house of representatives. Whatever goes through, whatever comes from parliament, if it does not get accepted in the Senate, it cannot be implemented. But in Kenya, senators are only flower girls in a wedding. So the real wedding happens in parliament.
Right. So
now, the funny thing is that
go on. I need you to wrap up because we're running out of time. Yeah.
In all this representation, serious minds in the legislative representation are very few. The rest are only people who are brought there by nomination based on who knows who helped who, and who is actually giving who this and that. That is actually the sad thing. Now we are actually saying as Gen Zs, the protests have just started.
Okay.
And I think by now you have seen the Kenya. It's going to be a bunker.
Okay. Thank you.
Because this country is going to come into a shutdown for the next 1 week.
Okay, we've opened the lines up 0201-277-0993, 277-1993, 277-9993, 277-3993. You may call now. Remember your name, where you're calling from, and your question, please, before the end of the show. Right, let me come to you. So, Husna, if you could respond to this in about a minute, because I know the lines will start going. We've got, we saw William Ruto go to America and become the body of America just a couple of weeks ago, a month ago or so. What do you make of that? How is it that a man who was about the emancipation, a Pan-Africanist, he said, emancipation of Africa, now suddenly becomes the body and the baby, almost, as some would call him, the stooge of America in Africa, who has now agreed to send Kenyan military over to Haiti? Give us your thoughts on that within a minute, if you can. Husna, that's to you.
Thank you so much for that question. And I'll say this is my personal opinion, whereby I feel that once you beget power stings, and it has gotten into his head and forgetting the promises that he made to Kenyans. So it's no longer about the citizens. It has gone to, it's like, for me, I've said the power has gotten to his head. And you find that, again, also goes back to the principles of fairness, as well as international organizations, the power of the superpower, because you find that once, this is a guy who was not wanted, he was given the ICC charge and all that, but now that he's the president, things have changed. And you find that it's a two-way thing, because if the Americans really cared about this, they are meant to be the ones not trying to affect the sovereignty of Kenya, but leading it out to say, you have promised to do A, B, C, D. What happened to the promises that you have done? To hold him more accountable and have a pressure so that he knows that things are going to work out. And you find that for the Kenya taking our military men to Haiti, it's a bit sad, because you find that we say, why of all the countries, it's only Kenya which accepted that. Is he thinking about these citizens, or is he just thinking about his own interests? Because if you are in a sober mind, you will consider Haiti, of all places, why would you want to take your people there? And these are foreigners, you see. And even the Haiti, we can say the Haiti men themselves, the warriors have already, the militants have given a warning. So for me, it's a bit on a sad note. The thing is only being driven by the money, but not considering the values of protecting a citizen, because a citizen is a property of the state. And how best can we protect our military men? I think as a government, they should have thought better. It's not always about the money. Mm-hmm. The money we have in Kenya, if well managed, will take care of all of us. We don't need to send our men, our husbands, our kids to Haiti, because they're just going to be killed there. What for? Why can't we just manage ourselves and look at other countries? And even looking at it, it should have been an African Union thing whereby you pick 5 from Kenya, pick 5 from Nigeria, we get a collaboration of this army. Why Kenya alone? So for me, it's not making sense at all.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you think the Kenyan people support it because it's going to bring in more money, or at least some money?
So bringing us the money, they'll just use it as cover up for security,
right.
And security, you cannot account for it.
Right.
You shouldn't see it. So I don't see how it's going to bring the benefit to Kenyans. And that even though a few MPs had started talking about it, but of late they have kept quiet again. So the bigger ramification is what the country hasn't envisaged to see how is it going to affect us as a nation. Why are we taking these people just, at times maybe you are not informed where are you going. And once as a military, you're given the orders, you have to accept the orders. You can't ask questions. But I think as a nation, we have to start asking such tough questions. What is the benefit? How comes we don't want to maintain our military men? Why are we sending them there?
I hear you. Right. I have to come to you, Harry. If you could give me we're still taking calls, sorry. 277-0993, 277-1993, 277-2993, 277-3993. We're talking Kenya people, and yes, I know some of you are thinking it sounds very familiar to Nigeria, the corruption, eight powerful people running the government or the economy. And like a message that I have here on WhatsApp from Andoze in Maryland, Lagos, who said, "Good evening, Ireti. Did I hear her well? Her being Husna. She said a fresh graduate who goes into teaching in Kenya is paid $100 US. Is that true?" he said. Husna, that's to you.
Yes, that's very true.
Right.
And
so
that's why we are agitating for change. You can't
what, do you want more than $100?
A graduate, please. Why have you gone to school?
Exactly. So here's what my listener is saying. He's saying, if that is true, that's around 1,400,000 naira, which is far above what is obtainable here in Nigeria. That's what my listener is saying. Okay, now you're all calling. You always call late, and we don't have much time. But Harry, what have you got to say to that? I'll just answer. Stay calling, Harry. If you could just give me a 30-second response to that, please.
Now, I'll tell you one thing. Give someone power, then you'll know this person's true character. And I think it's a high time we need to tell, we as Africans, we need to tell our leaders once and for all. We are not going to be propagating experiments for IMF, NATO, and any other IMF, NATO, Bill Gates. We are not going to be propagating lab rats for them.
Okay.
The whole story of going to Haiti, I'm actually wondering how a Kenyan police is going to deal with gangs in Haiti, whereby in our own country, we're having children at the age between 8 and 14. These kids have never seen the door of a classroom. These kids are bandits down there in Kerio Valley. If you have heard the stories about cattle rustling in Kenya, whatever goes down there in Kerio Valley, those are kids that are doing those things. And whatever they are doing there, it's business for the sitting leaders in this house of representation. The same police, these kids, they cannot even manage these kids in their own terrain. How are you going to tell me these police are going to handle guns that are well trained in Sudan? Like they are actually handling guns like a day activity.
Okay.
That is one.
Okay.
Second thing,
you can call. I'm going to come into your calls now. Pick up the first one because we don't have much time. I've only got 6 minutes left. So if you could wrap up, Harry, so I can pick up the first call that comes in.
Now this is the last one. When I was growing up, working in the police force and in the military was one prestigious job. One prestigious job, and those people are feared even in the villages. But nowadays, for you to get an opportunity to go in the military, you have to know whom you know, who brought you, where do you come from, and last of it all, what is that son of yours? Where do you come from?
Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what is your question, please?
This is Chris calling from Ikoyi.
Okay, Chris. What is your question, please?
My question is, where is people like Professor Lumumba in all is happening in Kenya?
Professor Lumumba.
Yes.
Okay. I can see Harry is laughing. All right. Is that your question? Thank you. Right. I'm still going to pick up your call. So if you want, those of you that always complain, this is a good time to call. Harry, I saw you were laughing. Why were you laughing to that question?
In this current state of uprising, the slogan is only one. A revolution will never be won behind the keyboard alone. A revolution will be won behind the keyboard, behind the placard, and on the streets. Professor Lumumba, sorry to say, yes, we agree, he's a Pan-Africanist. But I think along the way, he became another version of Miguna, a man who is always bitter about Africa. Yes, you are bitter about Africa.
Hello, please hold on. I'll come to you in a moment. Okay. Please hold on. Yeah, go ahead, Harry. Just finish your point.
People say, you are a Pan-Africanist. You have gone like you have shared the table with all the great minds in this world. Now, what have you done for Africa? That is the same question usually asked Professor Lumumba. He has not even been able to come about in public, tell us this and this is what I've done for the public.
Okay. Thank you.
So Professor Lumumba and Miguna, I think they're just these people cut from the same piece of cloth.
Okay.
Sorry to say so.
No problem. Hello. What's your name and where are you calling from, please? Hello? Hello? Are you still there? I can see your line is still on, but I can't see. You don't seem to be answering. Are you there? Hello? Okay, you can call on, I've still got a couple more minutes, 277-0993, 277-1993, 277-2993, 277-3993. Whoever it was that I kept on hold, I can't hear you anymore. Please call back. Okay. Husna, what do you have to say to that Professor Lumumba question? Oh, here we go. The lines are going again. 1 second. Hello? Hello? I can't hear you.
Hello, I'm calling from Lagos.
What's your name, please?
My name is Desmond.
Desmond. Okay. Your question, please.
Please, what about that? Why are African countries like this, like corruption, bribery, everything?
Okay. Your line is not great, but I think I get the gist of what you're saying. Why is corruption everywhere in Africa? Okay. You can still call me on 277-0993, 277-1993, 277-2993, 277-3993. Like I said, I still have a couple of minutes left. Right. Husna, what do you have to say? Do you agree with Harry about what he said about Professor Lumumba? Is a Pan-Africanist who has pretty much been pointless, is what Harry has said. Do you agree with that?
I'll say his visioning and thinking about Africa is quite good,
okay,
but it lacks the infrastructure to implement those visions. Because if you find that people invest in professors to come up with frameworks that can be implemented, but if these frameworks don't have anywhere to be implemented to change the lives of the citizens, then it's not making any impact.
Excellent.
And as we say in Kenya, the ground is always different, whereby you find things at the grassroots don't always match with what the elites say, because whatever they say doesn't trickle down to the citizens. And you find that I said corruption thrives a lot in Africa because we don't value our citizens, because we don't protect the inherent and inalienable dignities of our people. Because once we do that, we'll know it is important for our people to get sanitation. It is important for our people to access education. It's important for them to access the basic rights that will empower them as a citizens and even as a nation. Because once your people are empowered, they don't need to be begging you, they'll be minding their business. Because if I know all the policies are in place protecting my interest as a citizen, then mine is to focus on my responsibilities as a citizen. But if there's that vacuum, what do we expect? And I usually say it's unfortunate that once we are clamoring for more pay for our teachers, and Nigerians, they say $100 is enough. It is not.
It is not.
Why do you want all of them to become gangsters,
I hear
because a few of us cannot be comfortable while the majority are being impoverished.
Excellent.
If you want to be comfortable, we have to raise the minimum level of living so that all of us can be very comfortable.
Thank you so very much for this brilliant debate. Husna Hassan and Harry Kivayiru. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on Borderlines and enriching us and educating us and expanding our knowledge about what's going on in Kenya. We will certainly be keeping an eye on what's going on. And if it continues, we want you both back. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you so much for having us, and we hope that this will be a challenge to Nigerians. You have a lot of resources which can bring development, it can bring accountability, and I believe that Nigeria is equally a very rich country that doesn't have to go all the problems that it's having now.
Thank you very
so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Lagos, Nigeria, that's the end of another Borderlines. Yvonne is here. It's 6 o'clock. Time for the news.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.